But then we also need to make sure that we turn profit into cash. So I want to get into the last three levers that are specifically around cash. And the first one is on debtors days. How can we recover our debtors faster? The shorter your debtors cycle, the more money is in the bank for the company faster, and the less cash you need to run your operation. Uwais, what are your best tips in terms of turning your debtors around quickly?
Oh, if your company is really in a cash pinch, consider offering early settlement terms, maybe 5% reduction in price if you get paid in 5 days as opposed to the normal 30 days, or invoice discounting. But that's really if you're really in a cash crunch. If we're talking to the businesses that are scaling and profitable, I think it's very important to agree payment terms in some sort of service level agreement. It surprises me so many businesses that come along where they don't have any agreements with their customers, and I can't understand why. Obviously, the best debtors day cycle is upfront payment, either fully upfront or 50% upfront and 50% on completion. The best debtors days is no debtors, but also if there was a way to automate the process, for example, through debit orders. Customers sometimes forget or they've got other things on their mind. The less friction, the better in terms of bringing that sort of money in. And tools like Xero also allow for automated invoice reminders and automated statements that go out days before payment is due, just to remind the customer to pay instead of having someone having to physically go and call them to pay the outstanding amounts. I think that's what I definitely recommend.
Perfect. No, I mean, I think just starting with basics, right? Just getting your invoices out on time, making sure all the invoices go out, making sure there's automated follow-ups with the guys. You're just starting with basics, and then then turning up the heat in terms of getting those data in as fast as you can. Thanks, Uwais. I really like that. So for inventory companies, there's another layer of complexity here in the 6 lever here, which is basically to reduce inventory days. What we mean by that is that's your inventory days measures how many days does the average unit of inventory sit at the company on its books before it gets sold, because that's the time you need to carry the cash that you've spent on that unit, right? So we want to as soon as our inventory comes in, we want to get it out the door preferably, and we would like to actually pay for it only after we've sold it. That's the ideal structure. But just in terms of getting product out the door, I think I'll throw this one to Donna.
Yeah, low inventory. If you're an inventory business, your inventory days will make or break your business. It will either put pressure on your cash flow, or you're going to sit with obsolete, redundant stock that you're struggling to sell. So a typical benchmark for inventory days is, let's say, 30 inventory days is typically a good indication that you're maintaining and managing your inventory very well. If anything like 90 inventory days might be that, shucks, you might not necessarily be you have inventory for like 3 months before you actually turn it into sales. So those are typically some of the considerations. So you really want to reduce your inventory days. It has a massive impact on your working capital, especially if you're working with a lot of inventory. So my considerations here is, obviously I understand the founder's risk or the business owner risk. You don't want to be in a scenario where you have negative stock quantities and you might lose a key client. So I understand that as well. But you also don't want to be in a position where you have a lot of stock and it costs a lot of money to store that inventory. You run the risk of having slow moving inventory, or the markets change and then you have inventory that doesn't sell well. So really, if you want to reduce your inventory days, you will have to invest in your inventory management system. So for instance, we have a client that we've implemented Unleased for, and that integrates with Xero. Before that, they had a periodic stock system, which basically meant they didn't track each stock item as it was bought and sold. They basically just do quarterly stock counts, and which resulted in quarterly stock write-offs. They didn't have an idea how the inventory was moving. By implementing a perpetual stock system, fancy word, but basically what it means is tracking each stock item from initial purchase order to actual delivery to when you actually sell that item. They had a better grasp on that individual item's gross profit margin, and that really helped the guys to understand which is the money makers, the slow movers, really helping their decisions on how they should forecast and do their purchase orders. So by understanding the trends and the consumer buy a market and how the consumers spend, you know which products to focus on and which purchase orders to increase and to reduce. You don't want to have purchase orders for stock items that's just going to sit in your warehouse and not going to sell it, because that will just ramp up your inventory days. So I think it's essential in order to reduce your inventory days low, you need to have the right system in place, very accurate inventory forecasting, a very good understanding of what the demand in the market is. And now with COVID-19, it's very challenging because there's so much uncertainty. So you really need to be creative. And I've seen some creative business models from the likes of moving to consignment stock, where it's not really your stock and the risk of the stock is on someone else, to even, for instance, drop shipping, where people buy from you, but someone else owns the stock, and you just put your label on it and they'll do the delivery for it, and your inventory days is basically zero. Some very creative ways and so, but it really challenges us to thinking of how to reduce inventory days. But in short, a great system. If you can measure it, you can improve it and track it, and to really just understanding your inventory and on a new level.
Sure.
Hey, Lau here, one of the founders of Outsourced CFO. If you enjoyed this video, make it official. Click subscribe.